okay, I've reached this target of 13K. I want to get to this target. So what do I need to do for that is get this many sales calls, this many 15-minute calls. And if that happens, I reach that goal. Everything happens for a reason and everything happens for a positive reason. Now, I think for the past few weeks, I haven't felt anxiety once. Literally, not even once. So that's a crazy result.
Is it possible to go from $3,000 a month to $23,000 a month, a total of $50,000 cash collected in only 3 months, while raising your price, while being completely new to your industry, having just started less than 6 months ago? Today's video is with a client of mine. It's Stephan. He's a high-performance coach. Stephan was new to his industry. He had low self-confidence in his ability to deliver, his ability to earn money. He had a lot of anxiety about the future of his business. These are the things he had when we started working together. And in the interview, he's going to share with you exactly what he did to overcome these problems and to move on and make the monumental amount of money. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts. What's up, Stephan? How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Yeah, happy to be here.
Likewise, I'm happy to have you, man. Very happy to have you. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do.
Yeah, so I'm a performance coach. I help entrepreneurs and traders with being consistent, with focusing better, having better energy, and also a bit of mindset stuff. So that's what I do.
All right, cool. So, Stephan, I mean, your results have pretty much been, mind-blowing, earth-shattering. And we were both celebrating, even today. I mean, it's funny how even today you messaged me, you were like, please revise that figure. I did, I closed something else. I did another deal. So let's rewind back a couple of months to what the situation was like. Like, what did it look like a couple of months ago? And where were you coming from? Tell us a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah. So I think this year I was going a bit up and down. Then I had some sales calls. Then I signed a client, but there wasn't any consistency in it. And I was really looking back at it, lacking the confidence in what I do. And I think as a performance coach, it's very important to be confident, not only in, for example, sales calls, but also with your clients. So if I look back at it, where I was I think I had some clients, it was going okay, but the lack of confidence was really nagging me. And it's funny that when I look back at it, because we've solved a lot of anxiety issues, which we will go into later, is if I look back at it, that was my main problem. Like worry about the future, about like, is this really going to work? Can I really like have a successful coaching business? Because you see everyone around you, you see them earn 10K a month, 20K a month, and you think like, yeah, it's possible. But for some reason, it wasn't happening for me. And I thought like it was a leads issue, it was a sales issue, it was my mindset, or that I wasn't manifesting, because I already knew a lot of stuff about like law of attraction or manifesting, but it just wasn't really working out, to say the least. I like to maybe combine it. It's like I felt like I was constantly self-sabotaging myself. So I was doing well. I had a few sales calls one week, and I signed a client another week, but then there was a week with like no calls at all. And that's a bit about where I was before joining the program.
So yeah, that sounds pretty common actually. Lack of lead gen or confusion, lack of clarity about where the next sale is going to come from, and then sabotage and anxiety. We call it, as you are now very familiar, we call it a famine cycle, where people dip into a famine cycle where there's no business, there's lack of hope, there's hopelessness, they're second guessing themselves, and then momentum is built, and then we go up like you are now. So yeah.
To add to that, in that stage, I was always looking for the next best thing. So it was like, should I go on TikTok? Should I do YouTube? Should I start a podcast? Should I do that? Like I didn't have any clarity about what was actually working and what I should focus on. I just tried out a lot of stuff and then hoped it would work. but there was no real confidence behind it or any logical behind it. Like, okay, I'm sending out this many messages. And I think that was the main state I was in looking back at it.
So it's essentially you were trying a shotgun approach. You were trying lots of things and then hoping something stuck and then waiting for something to stick, which resulted in confusion. Tell the audience a little bit about how you and I ended up working together. How did that come about to be?
Yeah. So I think we were messaging back and forth for quite some time. And we both have a passion for biohacking. So for the people watching who don't know what that is, it's like optimizing your body and mind in order for better energy, better focus. So that could be very simple, like getting more into nature, but it's also having like devices that measure how well you're meditating. And that's how we connected. And then we had a first call. And actually at that time, I was already thinking like, I knew some things about performance, of course, because I was coaching others on it, but I still felt like I could know more. I wanted to learn from someone that's already been doing what I wanted to do. And that's how we connected. And the funny part is, we were just talking about it, is that that's I think one of the, like, apart from, we can get into it later, like apart from why I joined is I think your energy, but I joined, like the motivation I had at that time was like, okay, I want to learn from someone that knows a lot about biohacking, knows a lot about performance, and then I can use those tactics in my own coaching. If I look back at it in these past few months, I think we've talked about biohacking maybe once or twice. Like we did talk about it, but that was not really the main thing. It was like, I think before we started the coaching, I thought I was at like 70%, and I just needed a few things to get to 100%, or let's say where I'm at now. But if I look back at it, I was at like 20 or 30%, and I had a lot to improve to get to this point. But I didn't see that at that point.
So you thought that biohacking would be the solution, but biohacking was the thing that we talked about the least.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
As you're aware of now, man, it's about energy. It's about we can hack our biology and our neurology, but if we're not feeling good, if we're not feeling happy, if we're not feeling excited about our life and the things we're going to do, good sleep can only help you so much. All right,
Yeah.
so now share a little bit about your experience and working together, what that was like. What did you enjoy about it, and how did things start to happen for you?
Yeah. I think I am, and that's not to be arrogant, but I think I'm quite coachable. Like if someone says something to me, then I just do it, and I do it religiously. And that's, I think, how we started. Had a good onboarding. And at the start, I thought, like, for example, when I work with clients, I have a full plan. It's like, okay, this is for sleep, this is for focus. And with you, like we didn't have that. And I first thought like, okay, what are we doing? Like not questioning it because I'm just, I do that stuff. But I was like, oh, what's the plan? And then looking back at it, it was very clear. Also reading more about, for example, Joe Dispenza's work and some things we've been doing. It's like, it's very clear what you were doing. You had a complete plan for me and a complete stage of like, okay, first get him to this. So for example, one of my problems was that even if positive things happened in my life, I would still be negative. I would still focus on the negative things. So for example, 2 clients could sign and then 1 client didn't sign. I would focus on the one that didn't sign. So one of the first things we, for example, did was just gratefulness and another exercise, but just focusing on being grateful, writing down what are 3 things you're grateful for that day, really getting into that feeling. And that was like the basis to get further. One other thing that I really liked about it is like the starting small and then going bigger later. So for example, we started with a 5-minute exercise with writing down what I'm grateful for. And at the end, we ended up with a 25-minute meditation. But like if I would start and someone would say to me, do a 25-minute meditation, I would probably do it, but if I could easily fall off. So it was very like in increments, in very good steps. Like there was very clear to me. And also, I think the biggest thing I liked about it, and that's also sort of redid my stance on coaching. And maybe it's not the best to say this for myself, but it's like now when I invest in someone, I do want to know that they have experience with what they're doing a lot. Because, for example, with you, there was a time where I had more anxiety during the coaching, but you already, like the week before, you said it to me, like, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're probably either going to be hungry, you're going to be more tired, or stuff like that. And then it was like, because I knew it, it was like, okay, fine, just roll with it, focus on the exercises, and then we get to the other side. But I think, yeah, that is just so important that you work with someone that's very knowledgeable, that has the experience with working with a lot of people, because then you follow a proven process, and it's very easy to get results. You just follow what you have to say, yeah, and then you go further. For me, also what I liked sort of is simplifying a lot of things and focusing on the first thing. So for example, now, because we were talking about this before, and it was so funny because I talk about it with my clients now as well. It's like, focus on the first things first and then progress. So for example, if you have, which I had at the start, you have a leads problem, then what do you focus on? It's like contacting people every day, sending out, let's say doing 10 call proposals each week. And then that goes further into like triage calls, into sales calls. And then once you have the sales calls, then probably you're going to have a sales problem. So then you solve the sales problem. But if you, for example, start reading sales books and you start going deep into sales, well, you don't have any sales calls. It's like you're wasting a lot of time you could spend on prospecting, on doing stuff that actually mattered. And I think also, you said it, I think, a few minutes ago, but the thing about clarity, like even in the coaching, I was still like, oh yeah, but now this, like, Facebook is working. Yeah, now I want to go on Instagram, TikTok. I want to do this. And you said, no, focus on this. Continue with this. This is working. And then we can go further. And I think for me that there was a good wake-up call to even be reminded to it. Like, even when you think like, okay, things are going well now I can start doing a lot of stuff. And you still kept me on track. It's like, no, you're not going to do it. You're still going to focus on this one. Yeah, and that has been like a blast in working together, as well as like, I do it as well with my own clients, but I can send you a message always. And you always respond. Of course, not immediately, because you also have a busy life. But if I have any problem, sometimes you send me a voice note of like 8 or 9 or 10 minutes, just explaining something to me. Maybe I think once you send a voice note of 10 minutes and then one of 4 minutes. And that shows like how committed you are to actually get my results. And I just thought about it, but that's what I like the most, because then you can quickly go through things. While I also say it to my clients right now, like, I'd rather have you ask me a lot of questions. We can tackle stuff, instead of you waiting for a coaching call and then asking all of your questions, because we want to tackle problems immediately when they rise up. So that's a bit of a summary about like the process of working together. Yeah.
I very much, I agree with you about the fact that it's better to address something immediately within 24 hours instead of waiting 3 days and then talking about it, because we lose time. And time is money, time is energy. So I like that, and very much so. I was coached on the same thing that I work with you on, which is you focus on one thing and you do one thing extremely well. And Stephan, honestly, dude, between last month and this month, you've added a solid 10K to your bottom line, to your profits. Had you started expanding out on TikTok and I want to do this and Facebook and YouTube and blah, 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 then you wouldn't have made that excess money. And that's why the way I was taught and the way I teach is, first, you make sure that your first method is working like a well-oiled machine. And then when you have an excess of opportunity, that's when you go to other platforms. And I see, and it's such a good thing that you bring this up, because you're relatively, I mean, you've been in the coaching, performance coaching industry for a year, and your growth has been exponential. And you've only done it using one single platform. And I see so many coaches on so many different platforms putting in so much effort. And when I ask them, like, what's the net result? Like, how much money are you making? It's
Yeah.
close to zero.
Yeah.
So, the lowest hanging fruit has to come in first, and then we agree, and then we move forward. One of the things that struck me about you, and I want to ask you this question, it just occurred to me, what allowed you to do so well in, in us working together? What allowed you to, to have this insane, crazy growth? What do you think it
Um,
is, besides being very coachable? You are highly coachable, I must say. You're a great client.
yeah, yeah. Thanks. I think full commitment to the process. So that's like being coachable. But um, if you invest into something, you have to have complete faith that that person is going to solve their problems. And for example, one of the things how that gets done is through a financial commitment. And what I mean with that is that when I started performance coaching, I did, for example, a trade deal. And then I said to someone like, okay, buy some blue light blocking glasses because then like you have better sleep. And he was arguing with me like, but I thought there were some studies and they showed that like it didn't really work. And yeah, I mean, you have to have complete commitment to that process. I think as well as like I don't really shy to how do you call it? I think I can be vulnerable quite quickly and just throw everything out there and then you will help me, because I know for me it's like I'd rather have someone be very direct to me and just say what I'm doing wrong and just be direct, like, hey, you're doing this, but this is not going right. So for example, the TikTok and the Instagram example. Um, and I think that's helping me, because you have to, for example, in a coaching, you have to be open. I also say to my clients, like, you have to be honest, because if you're not honest with me, then we can't get we can't get any results for you. And I think that is what helped me the most. Also, like not being afraid to ask questions. Like sometimes like I've asked you so many questions, but that's helped me in getting faster, quickly, or quicker. Yeah, and I think that those are the main things.
All right. So, on the same note, what were some of the aha moments that you had of realization where, something just clicked and you were like, "Oh, I get it"? Because I know you have those moments almost once a week where you message me. Even last week, most of this week, you've been messaging me, telling me, yeah, I get it now. I understand this now. I get why this, So you want to share some aha moments that you've had?
Yeah, we can have a call of like 1.5 hours, I think. But two main ones that pop into my head is, one is like at the start, because you have quite an extensive onboarding, like a lot of questions to get to know me very well. And in our first call, you said to me, your energy is your superpower. And I sort of knew that if I look at like my life, and I knew that when at the times where I was really good in my energy, I was just attracting a lot of people. I was just feeling very good. People were very happy with me. But at that time, I didn't feel it. So I didn't feel like I was attracting the right things into my life or having the good energy, like always being in a good energy state. Now, in the past 2 weeks, I think I've been in that state for 90% of the time, maybe 95% of the time. And now I see what kind of results it's getting. So, for example, with sales calls, I I just how I'm talking right now is how I'm in a sales call. Like first, I would be, I think we even watched back some sales calls, and if I look back at it, it's like so unconfident and so just needy, I think is the good word. Like I would need some, that's I think the biggest aha moment. It's like I would need something from the other person. So in a sales call, I would need their money. I would need them to become a client. Well, now also with the confidence, I analyze their situation. And if they say, for example, I have poor energy, poor focus, then whatever happens, I know I can help them. And even if they don't see it, it's not my problem. They have a problem. I have the solution. I don't need the money. I don't need anything. You need me. And I think that translates into more clients, into better energy, and people attracting better things to you. But now I really see why it's such an important thing. Also with, for example, with my content, it's like the best pieces of content I've written. You've also said it to me, like how to write the content, is when it just came out of the heart, out of my energy, and just wrote it down. And I had before, I never had someone become a lead through my content. And now, for example, we talked about it before, that someone wanted to book a call with me because he read a transformation post. I talked about how I was addicted to smoking weed in the past, and that 3 people responded to me like, hey, I'm still addicted. Like, how do you solve that problem, or how did it work for you? So I think one of the aha moments is like, yeah, my energy is really my superpower, and feeling good is the key for me. If I feel good, then I attract things in my life, and things just flow. Like I sent you a text today. Like I now I understand how easy it is, because now it's just yeah, very logical. Another aha moment I had was the first, like I knew a lot of concepts about, for example, law of attraction or manifesting or stuff like that. And I thought I also knew how to apply them. But in the end, that wasn't really the case. But the point I really want to make was the aha moment is that you have one school that's like, okay, you just manifest things into your life, you visualize, and then things just come through. And you have this other school that's like, actions. For example, let's say Gary Vaynerchuk as an example of that other school. It's like, just take action, or Grant Cardone, for example, just take massive action and then you'll get there. And what you showed me is that it's a combination of both. So on the one hand, you have to feel good. On the other hand, you have to put in the work. And that is very logical. So for example, you made me track everything. So my call proposals, my DM send, everything. And that made sure that now it's, for example, I said to you, okay, I've reached this target of 13K. I want to get to this target. So what do I need to do for that is get this many sales calls, this many 15-minute calls. And if that happens, I reach that goal. It's just inevitable. It's just like, I have confidence in my sales abilities. I know what my numbers are over 2 months. So it's just like, of course, it can go a bit higher. It could go a bit lower, but it became very logical. And that gives me a lot of, confidence. And I think those were 2 of the biggest aha moments I had.
I think a lot of people, this strikes very close to home for me and very close to my heart as well. A lot of people belong only to the school of thought which talks about action, action, action. And then a lot of people belong only to the school of thought which talks about just vibrate at a frequency and just visualize and manifest and everything will happen. Whereas, from what I've seen, and now you've seen it as well, it's a combination of both. We need affirmative action to move things in our life, and we need to feel good about ourselves, and we need to expect that good things are going to happen. Because like you very rightly said, if we get on, in a meeting, in a negotiation, in a sales call, or even if we create content from a very desperate energy, everybody can read it. People can read it. And people can read it, and people are repelled by it. And the only people who are attracted to desperate energy are people with desperate energy themselves. So they come on board expecting miracles or magic pills, and then none of that happens, and it completely goes south. Whereas if you show up with a empowered energy from, you show up from a place of, hey, I'm doing well, I can help you, but it's up to you if you want my help, and it's up to you if you decide you're worth investing in yourself. Then you attract the most powerful people, because these people are coming from a place of empowerment and investing in themselves versus coming from a place of lack and being needy and being desperate and thinking, do I deserve to invest in myself? Will it work out for me? Because their train of thought is more like, I can't do it. I need a magic pill, or I need a miracle to help me. Whereas the other camp is more like, I'm going to make this happen, and this is the perfect person to make things happen for me. I think you hit the nail on the head. So Stephan, tell us a little bit about, I've already written down the big result you experienced in terms of money, but tell me about a little bit more about, what what results did you experience? Because you're also one of the people in Record Month who spent a whole month and there was no change. And I said, how do you feel? And you said, yeah, it's inevitable. And if I recall correctly, within a week of you saying that, everything changed. And it changed so quickly. And then, it's been changed. It's been 2 months since then. And it just keeps changing every week. It just keeps changing, keeps changing. So, I knew back then that, all right, this guy now, you were like, I can see it so clearly. It's inevitable. It's bound to happen. It's just a matter of time. Let's go crush this. And then boom, boom, the things just started falling like dominoes. So tell us a little bit about the results you've experienced.
Yeah. Before I go into that, I just thought about another aha moment I really want to share with the audience here. And it's what you've taught me about surrender. So faith also is in that. And I think it ties into what you just said with me just already having the feeling inside of like, okay, it's going to happen. And then a week later, it happens. But what was really the aha moment for me is like, everything happens for a reason, and everything happens for a positive reason, and that you have to fully surrender to what happens. So you do everything in your capabilities to do the work. You put everything in there, but it's you could call it God, you can call it the universe, but it's not your job to get the results. And that gave me a lot of sense of easiness, and I've applied that, I think, fully the last 2 weeks. And then you see what kind of results came from that. So just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah.
With results, the main thing is increased confidence and just the ease of mind. I think one of I don't know if I've said that already, but when I started out, I didn't think I have an anxiety problem. And then when we started working together, I saw that anxiety was my main problem. So first I started to worry. I started about, could I sign clients? Or for example, I had a bad sales call. Then, you have the whole pattern, but it led to always me being anxious, feeling anxiety in my chest. Now, I think for the past few weeks, I haven't felt anxiety once, literally not even once. So that's a crazy result. Also, the confidence is a big thing because, and still it could be somewhat better. That's something I still want to work on. But I think now it's like an 8 or a 9 or something. And that translates into everything. So if I'm on a sales call, like what we've talked about, whereas first I was really needy for the sale, now I'm like, okay, I'm just like objectively analyzing the situation. Could I help him? And if he doesn't see I can help them, of course, it's still that I have to do something better, maybe in a sales process. But on the other hand, it's like, if they don't see it, if they don't think they're worthy of investing in themselves, it's not my problem, because they'll still have the problem. And that confidence exerts into the energy, into everything you do. Also, for example, when I work with clients, whereas before I would, for example, second guess myself, it's like, is this the right protocol for him? Is this the right thing to do? Now it's just like, okay, you have to do this, because otherwise it's just not going to work. So for example, with one of my clients, he's doing a business which he doesn't really like, and he wants to work on something else that fulfills his purpose more. And I said to him, and he was feeling down that week, I said to him, like, what do you expect, right? If you keep on doing the same things, how are you expecting different results? You have to change. You have to do stuff maybe in the evening, or take a day for it to do something you really like, because of course you might need to do the business in order to get money. But you do need to work on the purpose, on the thing that really fulfills you. But if I wouldn't have that confidence, I would just say to him like, I think maybe it's a good idea that you would like work on your purpose more. Whereas now I just say like, this is what you have to do. If you don't do it, then like it's not going to work, right? And that gives my clients better results. It gives me better results. It changes everything, I think, in there. And I think the main thing, like first it was if you just talk about the business stuff, it's like first I got increased leads, so increased lead flow. I think literally in March when we started working together, I had maybe 4 or 5 conversations in total, and then in April it started ramping up. In May it went crazy. And then in like now it's going even more crazy. And we also worked on sales. So that's, I think, what we also talked about is like focus first on what you have to focus. So first I had the lead problem, then we solved that in April, and then I noticed I had a sales problem. So then we solved that, and then like everything is solved. So that's a bit about like the results. Yeah, it's gotten me.
Yeah. I think you nailed it on the head where you said the confidence actually helps us be better coaches, because sometimes people, whether it's a confidence issue, sometimes people are too afraid of ruffling feathers, or they're too afraid, they want to be overly polite, or they want to be overly nice, or they take the onus on themselves to do the work for the client instead of calling the client out and helping the client and challenging their beliefs. And doing it openly and transparently to create massive change in a short amount of time. I think that's where our style mixes, because me and you, more or less, we're both like, cut the bullshit, get to the point, address the point, move on.
Yeah.
So that helps us communicate very well. And last question, Stephan. So you talked about the results, the confidence, the predictability, the reliability, the understanding of, it's one thing to logically know what, concepts and theories mean like, and then it's a completely different thing to actually practice those things, experience those things, and create those results again and again and again.
Yeah.
Tell me, how has everything that you've experienced, how has that impacted your life? Has there been any change in your life? How is your life today?
Yeah, so I think the main part is the easiness. Like if you talk about a result, is the easiness about everything. Whereas first I was very strict. Like, okay, I have to like, for example, always do this kind of routine. I have to do this. I can't go out for dinner during the week because then I'm focused. And now it's like it's way more easy. For example, so last week I signed, I think at the moment I signed 3, and then I signed another one in the evening. But then I said to my girlfriend, like, okay, let's go. We're going out for dinner. I'm treating. We're going there, and just that easiness of like, I don't have to like, I don't have to run. One of the main things, because we were talking about hard work, but one of the main things you also taught me is like, I don't have to work hard to make money. It's one of the affirmations I now also have. Like, of course, we do work hard, but I don't have to work hard to make money. And I think the last 2 weeks, of course, I've put in the hours, but I think I could work even harder, and I've earned the most amount of money I've ever earned. So that's quite crazy. And I think also that confidence is translating into my relationships. So for example, with my girlfriend, being more assertive, knowing more like, okay, this is what I want to do, for example, and really showing that. And also in other relations, I think the gratefulness part, because I'm always now in a higher state of energy, is that I am more nice when I'm with my family. I'm more nice when I'm with my girlfriend. Like it translates into everything, because if you're just grateful and be happy, then they become happy as well. One other thing is that a result, and it's more of another result, is but like the directness in sales calls. It's like that's something I struggle with a lot, also due to low confidence, I think. And now I can be very direct because I know that I can change someone's life. So for example, I think I've said it to you, is that I've had 2 people that were very good prospects and they ended up in a burnout. Like they didn't sign on, then they end up in a burnout. And I'm not saying like, of course, a burnout is a very large topic. I'm not saying I could entirely change that, but I do know for sure that we could have made it better, right? And the only thing why that happens is because I'm not willing to press in a sales call, to press on the issues of like, okay, so like you're willing to work 80 hours a week for the rest of your life. Like you're willing to have stress for the rest of your life. And sometimes you have to make that push in order to help someone further in life. But if I look at results, it's like the easiness, the happiness, just everything.
I think that's awesome. I think you nailed a lot of things. I think you're spot on about some people being overly polite during sales calls and being afraid of offending a prospect. And that usually comes because people don't have lead gen right. So that because there's very few leads, they treat their sales super preciously. And other people are overconfident and overly aggressive because they've been somehow taught to be that. And the trick is to just be yourself, to be a confident, authentic version of yourself. Call a person out on their bullshit if it is indeed that. Be compassionate. Tell them that you understand, but also be unattached, which is something that a lot of people have to learn, to stop being attached to a certain outcome, which is where your concept and what we talked about of surrender comes in. Like, you do your best and then you move on. And that's why I tell so many people that if you fix lead gen, you will never have to worry about a sales ever again, which is the case with you. You were telling me earlier today that, I can decide, I can reverse engineer my sales. Like, I can tell you how much money I'm going to make this month, and I can make it happen just because I know the steps. And we went through all the steps and we went through the bottlenecks. We started the tracking. We looked at, it's like you were saying, one problem after another. First, you solve a lead gen problem, then you solve a sales problem, then you solve a fulfillment problem, so on and so forth. Instead of worrying about a problem that's 7 steps ahead and not looking at the first thing that's in front of you. So I think one of the results that I'm going to share with the audience is that Stephan is sold out completely on his one-on-one spots. But the good news is he's got a brand spanking new program, which is very quickly running out as well. And I'm going to tag him in this interview. You can contact him, you can DM him. He's, the best at what he does. And I'm super happy to have you. Thank you for joining us today, Stephan. Thank you for sharing everything today. And, everybody have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back. I hope you found the video useful. I hope you found it insightful. I hope it inspired you to take action in your own life. I'm going to link another such star performer right here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.